Sorry about that, guys. What I was saying is that this is a time when things are coming to an end, and even though those situations can technically be over now, this feels like even on the mental front, like now I have some sort of closure. That can be something that's happening. It can be energetically, things are being worked through, and it can be a time when things really turn around where it's like the pain of those situations, it's concluding now because everything has been brought up and everything has come to light that needed to, and it's been clarified at this point. And so there can be the recovery essentially from this that can be happening. And whatever was not allowing us to show up for what's really important, what's most important, it feels like it's also a correction on that front too. Because I get like maybe there were some things that were going on that were being done that it feels like maybe we're not meant to be part of this process. Yeah, I see. This feels more to me like extracurricular things that were going on that were not meant to be going on more than anything. I feel like that's the best way to put this. But we can be doing that too. You know, there's a reason why these things happen. And so it's not just like caught ya, found out what you did. It's more so understanding, especially when this is within ourselves, but we can also see this within other people, like where this was even coming from in the first place. That's another aspect of having the Sun and having Ace of Swords. It's not just like I saw this person doing this thing, or I recognize that I was doing this behavior. It's about getting to the seed that was planted that this came from in the first place, like the belief and how that kind of trickled out in a way. So I think that this is more than just finding out things that are happening or like admitting to whatever. This feels more so like I'm seeing where that comes from. I'm seeing why I do that, like why I avoid those things, and what it is within me that feels like I can't handle telling myself the truth or telling this other person the truth, and that's why I do things in this way. I'm looking at a water energy, and I'm also looking at an earth energy. We have the Sun here, and I'm also looking at Sagittarius on the bottom of the deck. When we have Queen of Cups, there will be themes having to do with our emotions, regulating how we deal with our feelings, whether we are present to them, we avoid them, we numb them, we process them, all the stuff having to do with our feelings, having to do with our self-trust, doubt, our intuition, our deliberate self-honesty, our deliberate self-deception, deceiving others. These are themes that can all come up within the water energy, whether or not we're being emotionally honest. And then we also have King of Pentacles, which can have to do with responsibilities, following through on the things that we are committed to, and following through on the promises that we make as well, and being upstanding and having integrity and being reliable and doing what we said that we were going to do. And I feel like something mixed up within all of this. There was something that had been going on. But now with this energy, it feels like a new chapter can begin because we have an Ace of Cups there. Things have really been clarified emotionally, and it also feels like there's a working together that's happening now, and that there's also an exposing of what needed to be exposed and figuring out how to kind of conclude this and then let it kind of like integrate to everything else. And having Temperance on the bottom of the deck, this is something that's quite a process to be moving through. This is something where it takes time because you have things that are coming up and then they have to be called out and then they have to be talked about. And I'm also hearing researched, and then there's just a need to kind of dive into it. And when it's something that's buried this deep, it can sort of come out in pieces. It's like rather than excavating and getting the whole crystal from underground, This is like going excavating, the crystal kind of fractured out, and then like piece by piece, you're pulling it up. And that it's exposing these different things, but that it takes some time to really be able to like get all of the roots of this out. And so, even though we do have a new chapter here and it looks very, very beautiful and it looks very promising, there's also something that we are allowing to end at the same time. So there can be a lot of beauty and there can be a lot of promise for connection now at this point. For those of you that you're in a relationship, it can be you with this person. But having that Ten of Swords feels like I'm still figuring out kind of like how to integrate all of the history pertaining to this. And that is something that takes some time to happen. It can. What this can mean too is that for those of you that you've been like working something out with another person, trying to figure something out, having us start off with the Ten of Cups, I'd say that things are actually looking pretty good, but there's still the sting of the past things that have happened. So yeah, this is something that's still very much being processed. Something here that's also being seen too is how before all of this stuff came to light, you couldn't have this new chapter. You couldn't have this Ace of Cups. Because whatever somebody was doing before was not allowing this to happen between the two of you, meaning this is going to require intimacy, and it requires like everybody to take the mask off in order to have a true Ace of Cups there. Whatever it was that was going on before feels like it was actually blocking intimacy. It was actually blocking connection, sabotaging the connection. However it is that you want to say it, it was allowing for the avoidance of that, allowing for the avoidance of being seen. And so until this type of stuff is called out, there are blocks, even if we don't necessarily see them immediately, that actually stop us from connecting. And the way that the Seven of Swords works is that it can be invisible blocks, whether we're not aware of them or the other person isn't aware of them. It can be like, why aren't we connecting with each other? Like, why isn't this happening? Why isn't this taking root? And it takes a process like this for these things to come to light, to then be able to see what was getting in the way. But it's always so tricky when we have the Seven of Swords, because it's like a block that's there, but it's invisible, and it takes inspecting to really like find out that it's there. But it's not an obvious thing. It can be like you know that you're not able to connect, or that just like something isn't working. But when we have the Seven of Swords there, we cannot know why and not know what that is. But now having Seven of Swords and having the Sun feels like I know why now. I see why that was happening. So whatever it was that was going on, it feels like, okay, well, I'm going to stop doing that. And this isn't going to happen anymore, or I'm seeing how this impacts that and how this happened. So whatever this block was that was happening, and it feels like in some invasive, but there's a word that I'm looking for here. It's like when something is insidious, the right word. It just, the way that it comes through is the notion of something being like really hard to sort of grasp, almost like this mysterious thing that's going on, and because of it being invisible, it's very difficult to make tangible and to elucidate, to understand in the first place. But at this point, I feel like I'm just going to be repeating if I go into it anymore. But yeah, that feels like ultimately what had to happen here in this situation. So there are things going on that weren't allowing for a deeper sense of connection, or even for things to feel like they were really going anywhere, even, especially on the emotional front, building trust, these sorts of things. And I mean, any more insight about like what this particular thing was? Do you need to know about what it was particularly, if you've already kind of uncovered that for the most part? I think that overall, this is saying that whatever these invisible blocks were that were happening, and when I say invisible, it's like there wasn't an awareness. So whether somebody was like not being honest, was covering it up, was saying they wanted to connect, but then somehow you weren't really able to connect with them, whatever it was that was going on, it feels like that's finished now, having 10 of Swords next to it. Like I'm stopping that behavior, but it comes down to understanding something on the psychological and energetic front. Now that that's happening, it feels like we can actually have this new chapter now. Whereas before it couldn't happen. And everybody could have been saying, I want this, I want this, I want this, but it wasn't working because of having the blocks there. And yeah, I get it. Like, this was actually really difficult to problem solve, because this can be somebody being like, I want intimacy so bad, and then avoiding intimacy kind of unconsciously in the ways that we do, and then being like, you know, just it's this thing where we want something and then we block ourselves from it, and then it's like, but I want it so badly. But that like lack of awareness that can be there, like, I didn't realize when I was doing this behavior, I was actively pushing away the thing that I want. I don't want to be seen, but I want intimacy. It's like, though, you can't. It's going to block that. If you don't want to be seen, you're not going to be able to have the intimacy that you want, but we want it so badly. But we can also just tell ourselves that this is the way to do things, and then it's like we feel that hole within us. And back to the energy that I was seeing in the beginning too, when we have 8 of Cups, this doesn't need to mean I'm walking away from a situation. This can mean I'm walking away from a belief system that doesn't resonate with the type of lifestyle I want. Or like, I'm walking away from sabotaging connections. So it can be a mentality. It can really be anything at all. So it doesn't have to be like abandoning a situation. Not that 8 of Cups is necessarily abandoning. Sometimes it's a situation that we're not happy in. Sometimes it's a mentality that we have, that we recognize, like, I could keep keeping myself safe, but then I'm not going to be able to cultivate the sense of connection that I want. And I want to leave that mentality behind because I'm not satisfied with that anymore, and I want a deeper sense of connection. So that can be the thing too that we step away from, whether it parallels us walking away from an actual situation or not. But it's going to change things regardless. And it can even be this like revelation that's actually really important here. And now that everything's out on the table, now that everything's exposed, it feels like it's just about letting those things complete and kind of, I get this like releasing something into water and kind of letting it like float away into the ocean here. And as that is fading out, because it feels like you investigated and everything has been found out that needed to be, now you can kind of let that go. And as that is going out to sea, I'm seeing what's brightening is a new chapter that you're beginning. And so they're kind of like switching out. So as this thing is going away, you have this new chapter that's coming in that now can actually happen, because all of the things that were blocking this from being viable before have now been, actually a resolution has been found for those things. So now those blocks dissolve. And having Temperance, this is the entirety of the process that you're moving through. So where you are as this is happening, where we begin the reading, is 10 of Cups and Ace of Cups. So this is like, you really got a great chance here now. And that's where we begin. All right, my friends, we are going to leave the reading here. I would like to thank everyone for connecting. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sending everybody love, and I hope to catch you guys next time.